Donald Trump has little chance of getting any type of meaningful support from the black community. He has these phony preachers like Darryl Scott who are supporting him and want to project themselves out as reflective of the black community, and that just is not so. Daryl Scott has been on various mainstream media programs and shown himself to be a strong supporter of Trump with little substance behind his support. I'm wondering exactly how much Daryl Scott is being paid, or what he expects to get out of his support of Donald Trump. You're going to see some surprising figures regarding the black support for Donald Trump in the state of Ohio. And Mr. Scott is going to call those polls garbage. And he's going to make the statement that he lives in Ohio and he supports Trump, so that the fact that Trump has zero support is not valid. Mr. Scott fails to realize that numbers are rounded, and of the millions of people that live in the state of Ohio, and the million plus black people that live in the state of Ohio, his one single vote would not cause the number of zero to be rounded up to anything other than zero.
Now, meanwhile, startling numbers on African-American support for Donald Trump in a few swing states from our new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll. So in a key swing state like Ohio, Trump has zero support from African-Americans. But in past statements and in indication, Trump thinks that he can certainly gain support amongst black voters. Here's what he has said.
We're going to do great with the African Americans. They want jobs. They want jobs.
We're going to rebuild our inner cities, which are absolutely a shame and so sad. We're going to take care of our African American people that have been mistreated for so long.
Now, those were comments back in June, and joining me now today, Pastor Daryl Scott, a Trump supporter who's actually now speaking at the Republican National Convention. One of the names released just a few hours ago. Thank you so much for joining us, Pastor.
Now, you'll notice that Mr. Trump refers to black people as the African Americans or our African Americans, which implies possession. He's not talking to us as African Americans. And here goes Daryl Scott.
First of all, let me talk to you about your message. We saw the list there. What's your role in the convention as far as a Trump supporter?
Well, Mr. Trump insisted upon me being one of the speakers on that night. I think I'm speaking Wednesday night when they confirmed the VP nominee. And I'm just going to simply give some thought to, some talk to the state of this country and my feelings about Mr. Trump.
How would you describe the state of this country? I mean, listen, for people who don't know, your church is hugely popular here in Cleveland. You're one of the African-American leaders. You can rattle up.
No, he's not one of the African-American leaders. He does, however, have a very large church that I'm not going to go into my issues with him. So let's just let it continue.
Off a number of lawmakers and presidential nominees and senators who stopped by that church in the past. So you're not new to the political world. So what is your view of the state of this country right now with the man that you're supporting?
Well, when I look at the country, we have civil disorder, we have rioting in the street. I mean, I'm seeing conditions in this country that I haven't seen since the 60s. The graduation rate for blacks is lower than it's been since 1963. We have police brutality. Police are even killing people. We have black people rioting in the streets. We can't get jobs. Our education rate is low. You know, for African Americans right now, things aren't rosy.
How does Donald Trump, or what has Donald Trump proposed that would solve those problems?
I've had several conversations with him behind-the-scenes conversations with him about dealing with black issues. We talked about Black Lives Matter. We talked about police brutality or police killings. He said something that I thought was very interesting. He said, I wonder why police don't shoot to wound if they feel the use of deadly force is necessary.
Because police are not taught to shoot to wound. They are taught to shoot to stop. Translation, shoot to kill.
Shoot to wound rather than shoot to kill. If you feel, once again, that...
Why is he saying that to you in private and not saying it publicly? When he gets in front of the rally, he often presents himself just recently as the law and order, but emphasizes the perspective of police and not the perspective and concerns of groups like Black Lives Matter.
Because I've had these conversations with him, and I invited other, African Americans to have these conversations, and they declined. They declined to have the conversation.
Well, he declined to go to the NAACP.
Scheduling. The NAACP is the same week as the RNC. He's trying to pick a vice president. He's all over the place trying to get a vice president, trying to get to Cleveland. He's busy.
But if you are trying to persuade a group that you are listening to their concerns, then why not carve out a moment to be there, especially when you are at zero support in key states like Ohio and Pennsylvania?
That poll is garbage. I mean, they didn't poll me. I'm in Ohio, so I will make up that 0.1%.
I think we both know how polls work.
Listen,
they don't poll every individual.
I understand, but you know what? And I'm telling you this, and I said this to you before. There are a number of African Americans that support Donald Trump, but they're afraid of the backlash they'll receive from friends, family, and community, and peers and associates. So they're not public with it. But Trump is talking about creating jobs for the African American community. I've talked to him about redeveloping and revitalizing our urban communities. We've talked about a lot of the things that are germane to the black community.
You're having this conversation with him behind closed doors.
It wasn't just me. It was myself and a number of other blacks.
But behind closed doors, do you believe he is speaking that same way and with those same ideas when he is at those huge rallies?
He will, yes.
But he hasn't. That's the whole point. He hasn't. He will, just like he will release his tax returns. Yeah, exactly when?
Has not.
But those questions have not been posed to him.
A lot of questions haven't been posed that he's volunteered answers to.
Maybe that's at the top of his list. But these questions, I've provided several different occasions for members of the African American community to have this face-to-face pointed dialogue with Donald Trump, and they refuse to attend.
Do you believe
so you can't bash a meeting that you refuse to come to.
Donald Trump on his Facebook page did mention the names of Alton Sterling and Philando Castillo in his Facebook comments following the shootings. Do you believe that he is ready to have open dialogue with members of Black Lives Matter and that he understands their concerns? Do you believe that?
He understands the concerns of American citizens. He doesn't
but
believe
particularly what we're seeing, though, is, and we have a case that we're going to report on, there's been a man, a white unarmed 19-year-old, a new video released of his shooting. So there is a police force issue, in Fresno, California. But what we've seen in the last few days, and it seems more so, deal with African Americans.
Well, if the Black Lives Matter and other groups want to talk to Mr. Trump, they can contact me. I can make it happen. I can make the...
So the door is open to
me. The doors have been open. The doors have always been open, but...
What a joke. What a joke. He is lying. Roland Martin has reached out to Donald Trump asking him to come on his show, and Donald Trump has yet to get back to him. So for Daryl Scott to make that false claim that all they need to do is reach out to him, that's a bunch of crap. The Tom Joyner show has reached out to Donald Trump, as they have done to all of the presidential candidates. Hillary Clinton was on his particular show. Donald Trump has never responded to invitations to address the black community through black media. So what Daryl Scott is saying is a bunch of bullshit.
Stand outside of the door and criticize the door rather than come into the door and just directly communicate.
The last thing I want to ask you about, the New York Times has this article today that says that whites are sensing a decline, and for them, Donald Trump unleashes words of resistance. And the following quote goes, "Everyone's sticking together." This is what woman said. to their groups. So white people have to too. You have a large number of white voters who believe that Donald Trump is speaking to their fears that they are on the verge of being eliminated, whether it's people in this country illegally, whether it's African Americans or Black Lives Matter. Why is he so appealing to some of these groups who say are tied to white supremacists, or who are tied to this notion of angry white voters feeling they're under siege?
Well, ethnicity plays a large part in anybody's decision-making process. I mean, when you have people that support, the Irish will support the Irish, the Jews will support the Jews, the Italians will support the Italians, and the blacks, there are a number of blacks that supported Obama simply because he was black. He appealed to black nationalists. He appealed to black revolutionaries. So for Donald Trump to appeal to them, listen, they have to vote too. They're going to vote for somebody if they like his message.
But the bottom line, moving forward, you believe that there will be potentially a door open for Donald Trump to have an outreach with Black Lives Matter?
There is a door open. We're forming boards now. I'm on a board. I'm on a board with him to have minority outreach, black outreach. We have our diversity coalition, but we're also going to target African Americans specifically for a dialogue. And once again, we've been endeavored to do this several times in the past. If I name the names in public of the people who I invited to attend these meetings that refuse to attend but want to sit outside of the meeting and criticize, I've even had preachers that refuse to attend the meeting that criticize Donald Trump in public and then try to sneak up the back door and get private meetings with. I have the emails to prove it. I just don't want to pull their pants down in front of the nation.
Mr. Scott, thank you so much.
Yeah, you need to pull some pants down, because when you guys had that phony meeting in New York that you guys advertised as a meeting of 100 black pastors that were going to come out and support Trump, you guys had to do a backflip several times regarding that meeting. And then black pastors that attended that meeting stated that meeting was nothing but garbage. So, Mr. Darryl Scott, you and your buddy Katrina Pearson and Omarosa Marigold, you guys are bought and paid for. So as far as I'm concerned, you do not represent Black America, and you, in my mind, represent all that's wrong with people who purport to be representative of our people.